The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. So.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Bellevue, Blaine County, Boise, Driggs, Haley, Kellogg, Ketchum, Lewiston, Moscow, Pocatello, Madison, and the list goes on. Senators Benoit, Bonner, Boundary, Kootenai, and Shoshone counties required masks, and people who did not comply with the order were threatened with misdemeanors in the form of a fine, imprisonment, or both. This bill, House Bill 32, draws the line between advisory and compulsory. If you want to wear a mask, if you want your kids to wear masks, you can do that. This bill says if you like your mask, you can keep your mask, but the state of Idaho can't force us to do that ever again. So in closing here, what this does is it limits government overreach and protects the human right to choose what's best for your own body and your own health. My body, my choice.
The vote count shows 27 in favor with 6 against and 2 absent. The majority having voted in the affirmative. House Bill 32 has passed the Senate.
Look at that, folks. Wow. Impressive. That was Friday. Midday. And I think we have the tally. Throw that tally back up on the screen. This was the mask mandate bill, folks. This is the one that you guys helped get across the Senate. There it is. 27 in favor, 6 against. The only 6 against were 5 Democrats and 1 Republican, the Senate State Affairs Chairman, Jim Guthrie. Senator Guthrie was apparently the one who's been stopping this bill from being heard the last few years in the Senate State Affairs Committee. But there was a lot more folks muscling it through, demanding it. You included, this program included, our organization, and many, many folks working on this. And it finally happened. And it passed the Senate. And now it's in the hands of the governor. And folks, here's what happens. The governor has to sign this bill. And I think with an overwhelming majority, I mean, that is a super majority. That is a veto-proof majority, meaning that if he were to veto this bill and it gets sent back, that all that has to happen is all those people have to just vote to override the veto. and that mask bill would stay. So, excuse me, we're really excited. We're really excited. You should be too. I was there in person. I took a trip across Idaho this last weekend and the few days of last week, and so I was there in the chambers, standing up in the gallery, watching Senator Lenny debate, and there was a lot of great debate. A lot of great folks stood up. And we'll share some more of that footage later, especially if the governor ends up signing it. We have an interesting show for you today. We're not going to go live to the House floor or the Senate floor right now. They're just doing just going through a lot of like procedural bills and that sort of thing. There are some interesting ones, but nothing to just shoot to live right now. So, but we are paying attention. There, House Bill 230. Is on the schedule to be heard, and that would deal with sexual exhibitions, public sexual exhibitions in front of children. And so we'll keep an eye on that. If they happen to whip through this stuff, we might dip in and listen to that. And then also there's the first of the 5 budget bills are going to be heard in the Senate, on the Senate side today. So if they start doing that, and that looks interesting, we might dip over there too. But I just want to get you, let's just go back to the mask thing, because you know, I had a lot of people, I've said this before, I had a lot of people tell me like, why is this so important? Why just move on, just get over it. And not only are we sick of hearing get over it, we're talking about a worldwide epic pandemic that if you watch the mainstream news, they don't even acknowledge that it even happened, that nothing ever happened. It's as if the Great Flood came over, wiped everybody out, and everybody woke up and said, "Hey, how's it going? We're back. Nothing really happened." I mean, that's literally like it was a worldwide global thing that happened, and a lot of people we're seeing now, of course, with all the different unveilings and emails and disclosures, you know, that it definitely was a lab leak. It definitely was gain of function research. It was all of these things, and it's just starting to feel like this was a big psyop, and this was a big way to just do the largest transfer of wealth in the entire history of the globe, to happen right under our noses here. So not to get into all of that, but to whittle it back down here is this was a top down. We heard some of the arguments. This was a top down thing that happened when you had the CDC, when you had the President of the United States, when you had all of these departments saying we need to mask up, you know, during 2021. You have to do this. You have to do this. It's recommended, you know, and you have to do this. It just filtered all the way down to your local school board saying, well, if your kid's coming to this kindergarten, they gotta wear a mask. You're going to see some footage here of that, of these poor children being sent to school, being forced to wear a mask. I mean, we all lived it. It's not going to happen again. And so it's not just about saying we're not going to do mask mandates again. It's about pointing to something like this and say, when you do this, we will find people to put into elected office to make sure it never happens again. And so it's not just the masks, it's all of it. It's all of it. And there's still things that are outstanding that we need to take care of. And so this was one of the first of many coming down the line that we're going to pay attention to. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was pretty emotional for me to stand up there and watch the debate happen. I got frustrated. I knew what the Democrats were going to say when they stood up, but it was also frustrating to hear someone like Senator Guthrie stand up and say, you know, I've never been vaxxed. I didn't like the mask mandate. I didn't like to wear it, but we shouldn't be doing this. And I'm just thinking, what a weak individual. But more on that dude later. But that being said, as soon as they all started voting that way, it was pretty powerful. It was pretty powerful to see. I was so glad I was there. Last night, funny enough, in the airport, when I was arriving back into the Spokane airport, which is the closest airport up here in North Idaho, Senator Jim Woodward was leaving he was getting ready to leave on his flight to go back down to Boise. And him and I have a little bit of history. I'm not going to get into here, but it's not the best history in the world, but it's a little bit of a little bit of history. And there was no bones about it when we endorsed when he was in the legislature in 22, and we endorsed his opponent, Senator Scott Herndon. You all know him, and so we laid into him pretty hard during that election. And he has some terrible votes in his history, but he's back there now. And I saw him in the airport last night, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, I have to say thank you for voting yes on that bill, on that mask mandate bill." And he looked at me and he said, "I could tell that really meant something to you, watching you in the gallery." So it was a good moment. I was glad to thank him personally and share that moment, and it just kind of reminded us. It should remind us all again that we are all human. We all have different strategies. We all have different approaches to things. But in the end, if we can explain to one another how important certain things are to each other, then as long as we have all the right information, I think it can have an effect, and we can move forward in a unifying manner. But we're still keeping tabs on him and everybody else, so we'll continue to do that. Okay, very good. What did I want? We got a voicemail. I went off the rails on Friday, and I challenged you folks out in Salmon to do something, right? So we got a good voicemail from someone in Salmon. So I want to play that for you. Let's get that ready to go.
Hello, Matt. This is Tracy Kreckler calling from Salmon. I'm taking you up on your offer to leave you a message to visit with you about the dynamics of our flag situation, our community, and most importantly, our representatives that are useless to try to talk to them about this situation. Anyway, it's a mess up here. I appreciate your show. I don't watch it very often. I listened to it today while I cleaned my house, actually. It was fascinating, to say the least. All right, young man, safe travels down to eastern Idaho, and be blessed, and thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you, Tracy, and we're behind you. We're behind you and all the good folks out there in Salmon who's fighting this big fight. Hopefully we'll see that flag bill come to the floor that says they can only display U.S. and Idaho flags inside the classroom and on school property. But we thank you, Tracy. We know you're fighting the good fight out there. I appreciate you watching. And folks, please, if you want to leave a message, 208-402-4915. You can be like Tracy and so many others that have left messages. It's really great to hear from you folks out there. So, and yes, I did travel out to eastern Idaho when I left here after the show on Thursday. Flew down to Boise and then drove out from Boise to eastern Idaho for that event out there down there in Ammon, Idaho, just outside of Idaho Falls. Yeah, there it was. I was a special guest. So it was great to see some great Patriots show up there. I posted a few pictures on X of folks that I met there, and it was really great. And literally, we just talked about winning a campaign. We talked about what Citizens Alliance does and winning campaigns and such. And so it was really great to get out there and really see a lot of good folks out there. While I was in Boise, however, and I don't want to make light of this at all because this is a serious situation. While I was out in Boise, I told you, and I even posted something on X, that I was going to be we're still looking into this whole situation. And I got some documents here on this money transfer thing that's happening with the governor's office. We dove into this last week. There were some revelations in JFAC that said that the governor's office was billing other departments for like these transfers of money, $55,000, $95,000, whole numbers too. They're not like, $17,240.69, to cover a specific expense. These are like whole numbers that are coming over, which is sometimes often bizarre. But the other thing though, is that if in circumstances, if that transfer hadn't made its way over to the governor's office, the governor would be underwater in their budget. They'd be over it. They'd be over budget. And so thankfully they were able to bill somebody and then come under budget or meet their budget. And if you recall, the lieutenant governor's office, when Janice McGeehan was lieutenant governor, made all sorts of news when she was over budget or she was off by 70 cents or something like that. It was huge news. So it's rather interesting to me, because while I was at the Capitol, I was poking around and I was asking people. I asked folks that were in the Legislative Services Office and the budget of the Division of Financial Management Office. I was asking them, hey, what do you know about these transfers? Anything that you can tell me to kind of explain some of this stuff away? And at first I was being told, I don't know anything. I don't know. That's not my area. I have no idea. And then I was told, oh, it's nothing. That's it's nothing. Don't worry about it. And then I asked some fellow folks, but I just was asking everybody, what is your opinion on this? And some people were saying, keep digging. I think there's something there. We got to keep digging. And then there were other folks that were just saying, this isn't a big deal. Like, why? No, we don't need to be digging around here. We don't need to be doing that. And I don't know, that leaves a sour taste in your mouth when you're asking questions about where is the money going, and people tell you, what are you doing? We don't need to be looking around there. Well, that just makes me want to look harder. When someone tells you can't do something or you shouldn't do something, and you're like, I think I'm going to do something, because I've got some documents here that explain that there was a $95,000 fee from the Department of Health and Welfare sent to the governor's office in August 24th, 2023. And all it was labeled was annual fee for governor office support. An annual fee. Like, that's not part of the budget. These aren't things that are in the budget. This is just what it was billed. But we don't know what that $95,000 went to. Like, what did the governor then do with that $95,000? Like, was that someone's payroll? Because Elaine Price, and during JFAC, she said these look like payroll payments. So someone's getting paid. So we need to follow the money and find out where all this money goes. Because here's the thing, the budget committee are setting budgets for certain departments. The department comes in and says, this is how much money we need. And then they negotiate, they figure out what they're going to give them, and then they give them the money and they say, this is all the money that you're going to get. And it's all line item. This is where it's going to go. And then the office of the governor does the same thing. And then sometime during the summer when no one's around, money gets transferred over here. And we don't know why. Another one, annual fee for governor's office support, $55,000 from the Department of Corrections. Annual fee for governor's office support from the insurance department, $50,000. And then support for agency administrator transition, $50,000 from the Department of Financial Management. So this is rather bizarre. One of the other questions that was raised during that JFAC meeting was that the governor's office requested $212,000 to contract with Salesforce. And if you guys are familiar with Salesforce, it's a customer management program. Like you have Salesforce and you can just collect data on all the people, right? It's a data warehouse for all of your needs, right? And so so when the budget office said, the JFAC said, yes, we approved $250,000 to go out and get Salesforce. Well, that was for last year's budget, and that hasn't happened yet. They haven't bought Salesforce, and we're coming up on just a few months left. So what is it, 4 more months or so until the end of the fiscal year, and they haven't spent that $215,000. And apparently the answer from them was, well, we didn't actually mean Salesforce. We meant something like that. So we're still looking to figure out. Okay, well, we'll see if they end up spending it on what they said they would. Right? So we're keeping tabs on this, folks. We're keeping tabs on it. And we'll let you know what we find out. We'll just keep looking. Okay, speaking of which, this all is under the guise of Doge and trying to figure out what all this stuff is. And so our good friends over at In the Know Idaho, Lily Allman, has delivered yet another fantastic entry into the video world here for our show. So, gentlemen, if you're ready, let's fire up the latest In the Know Idaho. video.
Hello, I'm here with the Idaho Division of the Department of Government Efficiency. I'm coming to you today with an anonymous tip that we received that some taxpayer funds have been mysteriously disappearing. Now listen, this is 2025, and this is Trump's America. The days of taxpayer waste are over. So I was extremely alarmed to discover some of these expenditures. First of all, we discovered $5 million have been spent educating potatoes about gender theory. I can't imagine what you would need to teach potatoes that they don't already know, but that did happen. We found $12 million has gone into converting EVs into diesels. I have to respect the vision here, but that's too big a number. We're gonna knock it down to $7 million. $50,000 was appropriated to the production of some instructional videos aimed at teaching moose how to look both ways before crossing the street. This was intended to help reduce accidents, but moose have eyeballs on both sides of their head. They can't even look at a screen, so we're getting rid of that. There's a fund to buy up all the good vanity plates and sell them on the black market at a higher cost. That's done. $100 million a year has been going to replenish the aquifer with Fiji water. No more of that. The Idaho Forest Service has been hiring a classically trained violinist to go and play in the woods to encourage tree growth, which is supposedly good for the timber industry. But if we're not around to hear it, I'm not paying for it. That's gone. $29 million went to the construction of an underground bunker that's filled with buckets from My Patriot Supply, not a sponsor. We spent $16 million on a pothole study and $18 million to study the effects of traveling between the Pacific and the Mountain Time Zone, both of which came back inconclusive, so that's cut. $100 million to install solar panels on the homes of migrant workers. We're not doing that. Last year, $4 million went to increasing equine accessibility compliance, which just looks like having a place to tie up your horse outside of most public establishments. Guess what? No one's using them. Lastly, and perhaps most regrettably, we sponsored an off-Broadway underground musical adaptation of Napoleon Dynamite. Ticket sales were through the roof, and we did recoup all of our costs, but the real crime here lies in disrespecting the artist's original vision for the film. They were scheduled to have another season this year. We're canceling it. And while most of these were made up, obviously Idaho is not immune to wasteful spending. If you'd like to leave an anonymous tip, leave a comment. I won't waste any more of your time. Call me if you find anything new. Stay efficient, Idaho. We're watching you.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
All right, very good. Man, that Lily video was great. In the Know Idaho, right before the break. That was awesome. And I'm going to challenge everybody out there. There might be one or two of those things that's actually real. I'm convinced of it. At this point, anything could be real in one of those scenarios. Okay, and you know, and speaking of Doge in this whole thing, like there's so much happening this year in Idaho that is in this course the spirit of DOGE, like cutting regulations, cleaning up the code, getting rid of pages and pages and pages of unnecessary and unneeded code anymore. But what we're really looking for is cutting the waste and finding ways to just cut out the waste. And programs that are being funded that are not being used, and all sorts of things like that. I saw this morning that Elon Musk was getting some pushback from this email that supposedly had been sent out to every federal employee that said, "Hey, just reply to this email with the 5 things that you did last week. Give us 5 bullet points of 5 things you did last week." And there was such uproar, like, oh, I have to report to Elon Musk what I did last week and everything. And then I saw this morning that or whatever. I saw the tweet though. I don't know when it was sent, but I saw some clarification on the reason, or one of the reasons, I guess, for this email was like just to see if anybody's actually checking their email. Like the emails went out to all of the federal employees. Who's on the other end of those addresses? Are these people even real? Because they're implying that there might just be jobs out there that have no people attached to them, that we're still sending money out there to. It's so bizarre how many the largesse of this entire bureaucracy at the federal level is so crazy, and all the things that are being uncovered. It just begs the question: well, if it's happening there, it most certainly must be happening in our states, right? And if not in all 50 states, maybe half. Come on, it's got to be happening everywhere. And not just at the state level government, but what about the local level, right? What about the local level? And that's what our state controller's office is all about, right? The state controller. It's like the accountant for the state, right? Like they're the ones that are like checking everything and making sure everything is running smoothly, right? And no one's skirting the laws, no one's skimming off the top. Everything is running efficiently, and our money is being spent wisely. And so, all eyes are going to be turned on this stuff as more of this stuff gets uncovered, right? It's exact same thing that happened during COVID, when you realize that everybody realized that, well, the federal government could be up there and saying, oh, we're not going to impose this, we're not going to impose that, but they're going to recommend things. And then those recommendations went all the way down to the local level. And all of a sudden, here we are, arresting people for not wearing a mask in public. And so the corruption is so low. It's oftentimes happening at the local level, but we don't even see it. We don't even see it. I got a message on X from somebody that says, do you want to know about corruption in Boise? And I'm like, I'd love to know about corruption in Boise. I don't know if I'm the right person for that. Because I don't really understand what's going on in Boise intimately with the politics and everything. I know you got a crazy mayor out there that likes to fly the pride flag. The pride flag is still, I was there last week. The pride flag is still flying underneath the Boise city flag out in front of the city hall. And I believe House Bill 96 is the bill that would say no more pride flags flying outside our city properties. So, anyway. All right. Okay. Almond will be on here in just a moment. Let's I guess we got what else did I have here? Oh, I wanted to discuss this indecent exposure stuff. So we don't have any clips today, but we're going to try to find time to do that this week. But the indecent exposure law last summer in Nampa, we did cover all this, didn't we, last week? Yeah, we did cover this. Okay. So that bill is still making its way out. And so I'm just going to be very curious to know whether or not they figure out how they're going to, cite a person who happens to be male, but has female breasts, whether they were modified. We live in a bizarro world, right? We live in a bizarro world where a man who claims to be a woman can have can be presenting female breasts, but not be cited for indecent exposure because they are actually a man, even though the breasts that they're showing are clearly female style breasts, right? So it's so bizarre, the things that we have to navigate now in trying to write law. And if we just pray harder, maybe common sense will be touched upon each one of us by God Almighty. I don't know. That's my prayer, but we'll see how that all plays out. As I mentioned, the House and the Senate are looks like the House is gonna wrap here soon. We are going to have hopefully Representative Jordan Redmond on. What happened up in Kootenai County over the weekend? Yes, we are going to talk about it. If you were curious to know, and if you haven't heard about it yet, up in Kootenai County, the Republican Central Committee hosted a legislator town hall event, and Representative Redmond was a part of that. During, and here's some of them talking. I believe this is after the event, talking with constituents. But prior to this happening, Representative Redmond and his office, he owns Redmond Insurance, which is an insurance brokerage company. And right before the legislative town hall, he was notified by police that his office had a credible bomb threat, a violent attack threat, a bomb threat. And so they were there investigating, and so they I guess they cleared the office out and made sure everybody was safe. But all of this comes on the heels of Representative Redmond and his bill, House Bill 138, which would add guardrails and stricter enhancements to Medicaid expansion. And so this has gotten people all in an uproar. And so hopefully once the House adjourns and Representative Redmond gets settled, we'll have him on. We'll go through the bill again so that everybody's clear exactly what it does. I believe there's a huge indictment on the media. Shocker. Once again, the media's misinformation or misleading people or leaving out the bigger headlines here to keep people from doing exactly what happened to Representative Redmond and fueling the fire that happened at that legislative town hall event. We showed you footage of what happened afterwards where everybody was fine, but we have some footage to show you about what happened during that as well. So we will get to that hopefully in a few moments with that. But I believe we have Brian Allman here with us. Brian, good to see you, my friend. It was great to see you in person down there last week.
Yeah.
Oh, did we catch you too early?
Nope. There we go. No, I moved my microphone, my camera over the weekend. Anyway, yes. It was good to see you down in Boise. Glad to see, we were able to watch the Senate do the right thing with that mask mandate prohibition.
I had to hightail it out of there right after it happened. We were up there together watching it. It was pretty awesome.
Glad you got to go talk to the East Idaho Patriots. They invited me out last month in January, and a good group of people. I think good things are happening.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the spirit is high. People are motivated, and we're just getting ready to keep on winning. We got to keep winning. Got to keep the momentum going. I love having good momentum.
Part of that, though, because we are winning, because we have momentum, because we're seeing good conservative things happen, the other side is getting, I think, desperate, and that's what we saw up in Kootenai County. That's what we're seeing throughout the nation. Really, their tactics aren't working anymore. Their control of the institutions are slipping. Their federal subsidies going through USAID and other programs are starting to be ended. And I think they're getting more and more unhinged. You see, that guy who assassinated the healthcare CEO. Yes. A lot of leftists online are treating him like a hero when he just, killed a man whose job was something that they disagreed with. This is a father, husband, and you see folks up in North Idaho making threats against a state representative because of the things he's doing in the legislature, disruptions at town hall meetings, and then claiming to be the victims. I wish I could predict that this was going to quiet down, but I feel like they're going to just get more and more desperate, like a cornered, injured animal.
Yeah, and to that point, there also was the Representative Cornell Razor, and his Army surplus store was firebombed. Before the legislative session happened, but after he was after he won his election, I believe, or at least he was named. Well, regardless, he's a representative now, and his place of business was attacked. And also, there was another candidate up here in North Idaho who was running for office, and he was attacked as well, violently. So you hear about how, the left and the folks who are on that side of the aisle, they're the ones that are getting attacked all the time, that they're being, genocide is being taken against them and all this stuff. But really, when you see what's happening, the actual people who are being arrested for violence or being hauled out for disrupting town halls or anything like that, they're the unhinged left, because they're back on their heels because this nonsense it's over. Like, we're sick of it. We're done with it. And it's really sad to see, because I don't like to see it. I don't like the violence on either side towards anybody. There's no reason for it. So yeah, it is upsetting to see. You have another final comment on that?
Well, I was just thinking, we had our own town hall in District 14, Eagle and Gem County last week, and some leftists came, Democrats. There are a few Democrats down here. And they had some prepared talking points, reading from their phones and getting frustrated when I would remind them, hey, let's get to the question, please. But thankfully, it didn't spill over into what we saw up in Kootenai County. But I think there's definitely a general zeitgeist on the left right now that they are losing, and they're getting more and more frustrated and desperate.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. All right, everybody, keep your wits about you. Keep your wits about you. And we don't need to instigate either, because it'll just set them off. Set them off like that. We're winning. We're in charge. Let's just keep it going. With that being said, I wanted to ask you a little bit about if you know what's going on with this DEI stuff. Senator Ben Taves was on over the break. There was this DEI task force that was looking into DEI programs within our higher education. And so they did a lot of research. They had a lot of meetings, and they tried to come out of this working group with a resolution and other bills that would limit, get rid of, do whatever it needed to do in order to rid our higher education of DEI. And so while that bill is trying to make its way through the process, over the top, Senator Jim Guthrie, who we talked about earlier, seems to want to throw a wrench into everything, and has a new DEI bill that's looking to sort of enshrine certain things so that they can't be dismantled. Am I getting this correct? I mean, what is there anything that you see here?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, because like you said, Senator Taves has a perfectly good bill here, Senate Bill 1048. And he went through the work with the task force, and then we have Senator Guthrie coming through with another bill. I'm actually asking ChatGPT to read both bills and explain where they're different.
That's good. That's smart.
Yeah. So primary focus, Senate Bill 1048 prohibits DEI offices, training courses, and bias reporting systems, whereas 1123, Senator Guthrie's bill, prohibits DEI in institutional policies. Definitions. 1048 defines it extensively, including terms like systemic oppression, social justice, and gender theory, whereas 1123 defines DEI more narrowly as just prioritizing personal identities. Interesting. So it definitely seems like 1048 is the stronger bill, which is to be expected coming from Senator Taves.
And not just Senator Taves, but I believe he has like a laundry list of co-sponsors on it.
Yes.
And whereas Guthrie doesn't, but he's the chairman of this, and this would come through state affairs, at least right now. But it also could go through education, I would imagine. But even still, if he's running his own bill through state affairs, I mean, that's the power of the position of the chairman is you get to.
Senate Bill 1048 has 18 co-sponsors in addition to Senator Taves, and obviously 18 is the magic number in the Senate, so he already has enough people to get it through the floor.
Yep.
And it does make you wonder what Senator Guthrie is doing. Remember, Senator Lori Den Hartog, Representative Wendy Horman, they came and co-sponsored the school choice bill, that became House Bill 93, and they got buy-in from a lot of people. They got leadership on board. They got co-sponsors like Senator Groh and Representative Monks, and then Senator Guthrie comes in to his education committee with a new school choice bill that he says is a real school choice bill, and obviously that one failed on the Senate floor by a lot. So I don't know. We talk about how conservatives are winning and the left is on their heels. Maybe some Republicans who have been used to doing things a certain way are feeling a little bit on their heels as well, as conservative policies are starting to win, and they're trying to mitigate them, to stop them, to gain back some sort of control over the narrative and of the policies that are coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we'll keep tabs on this as they duke it out down there. That's what they do best. Okay, well, I just got word. Representative Jordan Redmond will be joining us here shortly, so we'll be able to hear directly from him. There was an art he did answer some questions for the Kootenai Journal, and they posted an article about what happened over the weekend as well, mostly focusing on the bomb threat. We're not going to name this guy's name. Apparently, he also has been labeled as possibly being a libertarian as well. I mean, there's all sorts of different. Basically, when people get this far along, it really doesn't matter what their ideology is. They're crazy. If they're committing this type of violence, and so it happens on all sides, absolutely. But there is definitely a tinge of just mental illness that can sometimes happen.
Well, I think one of the differences though is which side is more accepting of crazy people within their ranks doing crazy things like this. I don't know. You might disagree, but I think it's probably folks on the left. Remember Kamala Harris running for vice president was posting links to bail out rioters during the summer of Floyd to get them back on the streets. Leftists up in North Idaho when Cornell Razor's store burned down, they were almost gloating over it. That's one thing. Say what you will about the Republican Party, but we usually try to stay away from the crazy folks who do have violent rhetoric like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's no place for it. There's no place for it. And you mentioned earlier the guy who shot the healthcare CEO. Is now celebrated on the left.
And interesting looking at the article here. That's a similar something similar with that, because Representative Redmond, does insurance on the side, or I guess that's his day job, and legislature on the side, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And yeah, he comes his platform, his portfolio really is a lot of healthcare related bills, like the sideboards on Medicaid expansion and allowing alternate pathways to medical licensure and all sorts of other things. This is really one of his areas of focus, and that this is obviously drawing some crazy, dangerous people.
The article does point out, however, that he doesn't deal in health insurance. It's mostly property insurance, car insurance, that sort of thing.
Crazy people aren't going to make a distinction.
Exactly. Well, he's the one running the bill, so that's the thing. But here, let's talk about this as we wait for Representative Redmond. So here's just a highlight. Here's just an example of how the media has been spinning House Bill 138, which, well, let's hear how they spin it, and then we'll tell you exactly how it will actually go. Watch this.
In the Idaho legislature could make big cuts to Medicaid expansion, causing thousands to lose their health care coverage. House Bill 138 would limit the number of people enrolled in Medicaid expansion to 50,000 without providing an alternative for low-income families. Right now, there are almost 90,000 people enrolled in this program across Idaho. Supporters of the bill say it could save the state more than $100 million per year.
The potential cost saving for the state is between $109 million and $163 million, with the greater savings for the state being to retain Medicaid expansion with all safeguards met.
If the safeguards in the bill are not met by the federal government or the state, Medicaid expansion would be repealed entirely.
I'm telling you, Brian, and even while we were watching this clip earlier, one of the producers was like, whoa, they're going to take away Medicaid. I was like, no, Medicaid expansion. Like, they're two different things, Brian. They're two different things. Medicaid expansion and Medicaid. This right here incites people to think that they're going to lose Medicaid altogether.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's three things people always mix up. Medicare is the program that came out of the 1960s to provide healthcare assistance to elderly people, retired people. Medicaid provides healthcare assistance to children or to disabled folks and additional assistance to folks who are elderly and retired. Medicaid expansion only came about with Obamacare just 15 odd years ago. And Idaho only got on board in 2018 due to a citizens initiative that was full of, not quite truths. And that's for able-bodied working age adults. So if Medicaid expansion went away right now, people who are retired would not lose their Medicaid. People who are disabled would not lose their Medicaid. People who are children, pregnant women would not lose their Medicaid. It's just healthy working age adults who just don't happen to make enough to cover various healthcare things. And yeah, some of those people are in tough situations, but that's a place where private charity used to actually make a difference, and now the government's just completely crowded them out.
Yeah, but Brian, real quick, back to the other thing. That's the problem with the media, is that they should have said,
yeah.
And just so you know, folks, if you're elderly, if you're on regular Medicare or you're on Medicaid, this doesn't affect you. And because they don't say that, because they just want to fuel that fire, and because they're not being honest with you, it incites someone like this guy who made this bomb threat, and a serious, credible threat. The guy was arrested. He's in jail now. I don't know if he's out on bond yet, but he was arrested. He was booked and charged. And here's the best part about this: the bill hasn't even been made into law. It hasn't even passed yet. So if this guy's complaining about already losing coverage, or he lost some sort of benefit that had nothing to do with Representative Redmond's bill. It had to do with whatever administrator or whoever's running Medicaid denying him or him not qualifying for something anymore. Had nothing to do with this bill. But you got all these people showing up to town hall events. You got all these people showing up to protest outside the Capitol that are saying you're gonna get rid of Medicare or Medicaid, and that's simply not true. I place the blame on the media. And then of course there's chaos agents that will always just stir the pot and try to get people to believe whatever they need to believe in order to cause chaos. But that being said, at this point, the media are chaos agents. Am I wrong?
No. And that's what happened with this bill last year, and that's what happened with this bill this year. People signed up to testify saying that this is going to take away their insurance, and a lot of them were elderly or disabled, or talking about children. Either they're uninformed or they don't care. They're just going to say whatever they can to get their way. And yeah, media should do a better job. They should do a better job of educating people rather than just trying to make people angry. There's enough PACs and lobby groups and other political organizations out there that are trying to make people angry to drive their political agenda. And we don't need news media, which is supposed to be impartial and objective and educational, just joining in the chorus. They should be the ones saying, okay, well, here's the truth. Here's what it would actually do. Now, you can still support it or oppose it, but at least do it on the facts. Don't do it just on, emotional anger.
Right. Exactly. So I put the blame once again squarely on the feet of the mainstream media I mean, they're basically at this point inciting violence. They want these things to happen, by highlighting these stories and spinning them the way they do. I believe Representative Jordan Redmond is joining us now. Let's bring him on here. Hey, Representative, how first of all, praying for your family, praying for your business, and all that out there. How is everybody feeling? Are you all safe and feel safe and sound right now?
Yeah, man, really safe and sound. Yeah, I don't know. I was never too worried about it, truthfully. But I appreciate all law enforcement taking it very seriously and taking the actions they needed to correct the issue that we were seeing. So
yeah. So walk me through a little bit of what happened that day when you learned that there was that now they're saying a credible threat, and this person that made this threat was booked on these charges. Walk me through exactly what happened when you learned about this.
Yeah. So I had just flown into town with my two boys, 8 and 5-year-old. Because we were just going to do a little boys weekend up there because my 5-year-old's turning 6. So we're just going to do the guys. And we got into town, and I get a lot of mail there at my office. So I was just going to swing by and grab mail. And we pulled up to the office, and there was 3 Coeur d'Alene police cars there. And so I met with them, and they kind of explained that there was a threat to blow up the office, essentially. And so I let them know about the town hall coming later. And so they obviously kind of put out a bolo, and they were looking for this gentleman. And then they kind of had him pinned down where they knew where he was going to be. So went to the town hall, which was exciting. And then afterwards, we were going to go to Buffalo Wild Wings. and they're like, hey, he's kind of in that area, so please avoid that area. So we just ended up going home. We felt fine. My wife was a little worried. She stayed down in Boise, so she was a little worried. So the Boise PD was keeping an eye on the house over there too. And anyways, had a good weekend. But from that, we found out they ended up arresting the gentleman. It sounds like he suffers from mental illness, and so and apparently he's suicidal. So if you're suicidal, you could be homicidal. So they took it very serious, and they ended up taking care of it. Part of the issue I have was the whole deal is that he was worried about his insulin benefits from Medicaid being taken away about a week ago. Nothing that I'm doing impacts that at all, right? I'm writing a reform bill that is just in the Senate. It's not in law. It's nowhere near that. However, the media has spun this out that this is just repealing Medicaid and this is what we're doing. And so it's all the media up where we're at is saying these things, and even in recent things like on K6 or whatever, it was like talking about how he was mad because I'm taking away insulin. That's not the case. Like, tell the truth is like my biggest issue. Like, if because you are inciting this kind of stuff and ginning people up to come do this themselves. And even in the comments on that article, there's a bunch of people like, this is not the last time, we're coming for you, and all this different things. And I'm like, guys, tell the truth, right? Like, this is what you should do as journalists. You need to tell the truth, and that is not the case right now. And so that's what's frustrating to me. I'm protected by the Lord. I'm fine. Like, I don't have any, but you know what I mean? Like, this ticks me off that they're doing that, and they're trying to create divide, right? I mean, that's 100% the intention in my opinion.
We see the same thing. We were just talking about it right before you came on. We played a clip from, I think it was KXLY.
Yeah.
That just went through. They showed your comments, and all they just kept saying is like 90,000 people are at risk, and this will just end Medicaid expansion. And a lot of people don't hear the word expansion or even know what that means. They just hear ending Medicaid.
Yeah.
And that is so disingenuous, and they know exactly what they're doing because it gets them ratings, number one, right? And number two, it emboldens their side of the agenda because they're all leftists anyway on that side. And the sad part is that the people who are taking most advantage about this are people like that guy who made the threats, because he's obviously suffering from mental illness. When you go that far enough that you're causing violence, I mean, we also spoke about your colleague, Representative Razor, up in District 1, and how his place of business, he owns an Army surplus store, was bombed last year, with firebombed and completely destroyed. And it was politically motivated as well. That person obviously is crazy too. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But it's the media is fueling this, and they get a pass on this. And I'm not saying we need to go out there and be some sort of like hammer, but we have to find other avenues. That's what we were trying to do on this program, find other avenues to get the truth out there. And so with that, just once again, explain to us, because the problem with Medicaid is that it's ballooning money so badly, it's bleeding money so badly that it might impact actual Medicaid, right?
100%. Yeah. So we're talking about expansion population, right? The expansion population is able-bodied adults. What we want to do is put checks and balances in place. They have an 18.6% improper payment, right, on a $1.36 billion budget. So $250 million are getting sent improperly, right? That's fraud, waste. I mean, we need to figure out how to correct some of these things. I want able-bodied people to be working, volunteering, studying, doing something, because that benefits all of society, including themselves, right? Honestly, if this gentleman would have approached me and talked to me, I probably could have explained that to him, and I bet it would have been, and I would have tried to help him, honestly, with the Department of Health and Welfare getting his insulin covered, right? I mean, I would have put my best foot forward. If he's not eligible, he's not eligible, but I would have tried to help him. And this is the problem. When you just want to gin people up and you're trying to get clicks to freak people out, that is the problem with the media. And so I've gone from, and I do truly feel bad for the gentleman, because I think he was taken advantage of in this case by listening to Facebook or wherever he was hearing this stuff. And unfortunately, now he has some serious charges against him, and I don't want somebody that was, uneducated on the facts to have to get in trouble for these things, right? I mean, I don't think you need to resort to violence at all, but clearly, in my opinion, he was taken advantage by the media. And so, I mean, and you're right. So if we don't address these things right now, we're going, and it doesn't take into account, pregnant women, kids, disabled people, none of that, right? Those are different programs in Medicaid. However, if we don't address the able-bodied population, the expansion population, it's going to pull from them, and it's going to pull from our state budget. It's an entitlement program, so it has to be funded. So if we balance our budget in the state of Idaho, if we have to balance our budget, okay, now we have to pull away from public education. Now we have to pull away from, public safety. Where are we going to pull away from for this program? And so we want to correct the program, not repeal the program, but that all you heard was this is repeal, this repeal. No, House Bill 58 is repeal, and we have that bill ready to go, and we can run that if you guys want, but we want to fix the program.
Right. Yeah, let's try and fix it first. Let's just try and fix it first. Okay, so on the heels of that, you then go to the legislative town hall event where this, a bunch of known agitators. I mean, I live in Kootenai County, so a lot of these folks I recognize as being very, very leftist sort of agitators. One of them was actually the Democrat candidate who ran against, I think, Tony Wisniewski or Ron Mendive, one of the two, maybe both at one point in her political career. There she is right there. But they've showed up with signs addressing this Medicaid expansion as well. So they were clearly being duped once again by the media. Explain to me real quick, we've all seen the news about what happened here, but from your perspective, what was your takeaway from what happened at this event?
I think that it was clearly orchestrated, right? I mean, there was probably, 40, 50 people there that clearly had a mission. And I was told before the fact too, that like, hey, there's going to be this group that's going to try to disrupt, and the thing is, in a town hall, submit your questions. We want to answer the questions, right? I think most of them had issues with bills that I'm running, right? So I'm happy to answer those questions. I'm happy to have a dialogue. I stayed afterwards and talked to everyone that wanted to talk to me, right? I'm happy to have those conversations. But when you're just trying to disrupt and create chaos, which I think was planned, right? I mean, I understand now there's a GoFundMe to support this gal that has like, $70,000 or something. Like, I think it was intentional. And I think this is part of what you see from the extreme left that just want to create chaos instead of having, reasonable civil debate and talk through things. And guess what? Maybe you have a good point and maybe I should change something. But if you do it this way, I'm not going to hear your point. I'm not going to hear what you're trying to say because you're just being disruptive and creating chaos. So, it was much more exciting town hall than I've been at in the past. So that was, it's kind of nice to have a little change up. But I had my two, young boys there too. So, obviously I have concerns for them. If you're willing to create this kind of chaos, I think at some point, I have to protect my children. That's my number one priority. So I was, a little distracted, kind of keep my eyes on them. But anyhow, it was very exciting.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, from our perspective, that was just a lot of noise, and we want to make sure we're getting the signal out there too. So, Brian Allman, of course, you guys should know each other. Brian, any questions for Representative here? Oh, you're muted. Come on, back it up.
Yep. Thanks. Good to see you, Representative. Glad you're okay. I was thinking about, I hosted a town hall just for my District 14 representatives last week, and they kind of had the same thing where they came prepared with a bunch of stuff. They wanted to filibuster. Thankfully, it was not quite as exciting. And it got me thinking. One of the things I love about Idaho politics is that it's so transparent, so accessible. Regular folks can come talk to their representatives, the people that represent them, and get candid answers about stuff. But with this increase in polarization, and it seems like an increase in violent rhetoric, how do we maintain that? How do we make it so people can still interact with their representatives while also keeping you guys safe from the crazies out there?
Yeah, truthfully, like I said, man, I'm protected by the Lord God Almighty. So I'm happy to meet with any person. I was even telling the PD, they're like, hey, this is the guy. And I'm like, I'm happy to talk to him over the phone, meet with him in person. They're like, well, we don't want you to meet with him in person. I'm happy to answer his questions and have a conversation with him. I'll buy him a cup of coffee, right? We can sit down and discuss these things. And I'm still that way. Anyone that wants to meet, I'm happy to meet with them, talk to them on the phone, have discussions, have dialogue. I think when you do have folks maybe that suffer from mental illness, there obviously is a security concern there. But at this point, I'm still completely happy to have conversations with anyone.
Yeah, very good. All right, well, we're going to let you go. But before we let you go, Representative, is this going to slow you down?
No, not in the slightest. I mean, I full speed ahead. I believe in these bills. I believe what we're doing. So no, if anything, it gives me more energy to go towards it. And again, address any concerns that are there, but I'm moving forward in the exact same trajectory that we were before, if not a little bit quicker.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining and taking the time out today. Get back to work, brother.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Very good. All right, Allman. We're down at the bottom of the hour here. We're going to get out of here. Let's let people know what you're working on and where they can follow you.
Well, GemStateChronicle.com. I am addressing today an immigration bill, a guest worker bill that people have been talking about all over the weekend, and it's wondering what the thought process is behind that. So go there. I'll have that out soon at GemState Brian on Twitter, and of course I'll keep up on as much of the session as possible.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, please keep us posted on that bill. That was when that dropped on Friday. It was like, wait, what is that? Okay, very good. All right, Allman. We will. Sorry about that. We will. We'll see you later this week, tomorrow, perhaps. Right. All right, folks. That was great. I'm so grateful Representative Redmond came on, because look, folks. I mean, this is why we do this program. The media out there, the mainstream media where you get this news, I mean, it may seem like they're not doing something nefarious, but I truly believe they are. When they are inciting people with leaving out, when you leave out the details, you are lying. You are lying, because if you know that by leaving out the details of Medicaid that you are not going, if you are an elderly person on Medicaid, if you are a disabled person on Medicaid or Medicare, you are not going to lose that with House Bill 138 and the guardrails for expansion. And they don't say that. They don't say, oh, by the way, just as a side note, you folks out there, this doesn't affect you. This affects young, able-bodied people who can actually go out, get a job, and get their own and take care of their own health care. So, yeah, really rough. Really rough. All right, folks, we thank you so much for joining us. Great numbers today, great viewership. I'm so glad. If you are watching us over on Facebook and YouTube, we thank you for watching over there. We do want to make sure you also have an account over on X and on Rumble, because those are the places where free speech is taken more seriously than on YouTube and Facebook as of right now. So make sure you have a backup account over there, and you can watch us over on X and Rumble as well if you are on Facebook and YouTube. And if you only watch on YouTube, or I mean, if you only watch on Rumble or X, great. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're doing it with us. All right, folks. Thank you so much. We will see you back here tomorrow, same time, same back channel. Adios. Woo! Love to see it.
This bill, I think, puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.